Today is July 21st, 2025, and welcome to the 446th episode of the So Video Games podcast. Here on the show, I talk about any game at all, including new stuff, old stuff, and anything in between. My name is Brad Galloway. I'm the one-man host of this show, and I'm also the editor of GameCritics.com, a website that uses the full range of review scores from 0 to 10, while also offering full accessibility info on every review that we publish. Hello! Thank you all for joining me today. So glad that you are here, and also so glad that I am here. It's a wonderful day. Is it? I guess. All right, folks, going to kick things off with housekeeping, where I talk about tidbits, news items, industry happenings, basically anything randomly game adjacent that has caught my eye in the last 7 days. Let's see. Okay, let's start off with the Spotify thing. If you're listening to this podcast, maybe irrelevant. But recently, we took the show off of Spotify for a number of reasons. I believe I've mentioned it a couple times already, but there has been some issues. So I don't know exactly what happens or how the internet works. People tell me it's a series of tubes, but I cannot confirm that. Basically, what happened was we're taking the show off Spotify because Spotify, number one, is bad to its musicians, just kind of bad business practice in general. And also the CEO or the head of it or whatever was pumping a bunch of money into military-grade AI, and I don't need to fund Terminators to come and kill us as we fight fascism in the United States. So, decided to remove the show from Spotify, but unfortunately that caused, like, a bunch of problems. Basically, once I took the show off, something happened because I guess somehow Spotify was connected into how the show feeds to a couple of other places. I don't fully understand it. Don't ask me to explain it. But basically, it took us off of other subscriptions, but also doubled up some. And if essentially the effect was we disappeared from Pocket Casts for a while. And I think that we were gone from the Apple Store for a while. But then when we came back, we had like multiples. I think if you search for the show on Apple, I think you find 3 different feeds that all look identical. And I believe we've got the Pocket Cast issue resolved. But basically, if you don't find the show where you usually find it, please email and let me know. I'm still in the process of cleaning that up. And hopefully by now, wherever you find it has been fixed, except for Apple, which is still like totally pissing me off because it's impossible to get good customer service and podcast support with Apple. But long story short, if you can't find the show, how are you listening to this? That's amazing. But also you can always find us at GameCritics.com. We're now back on Pocket Casts. We are back on Apple, even though there are a couple different feeds. When you go to listen to the show, if you're noticing that it's not updating with new episodes, please go back to whatever device or system you're using, search for the show again, and just look for the most recent episode. It's going to be 445, or by the time you're hearing this, 446. Subscribe to that. That should be fine. And just so you know, I have hired somebody who has more technical acumen and patience than I do to help me get all these issues cleared up. I just hired them last week, and so they're going to be helping me make sure the show is everywhere where it needs to be and nowhere where it shouldn't be, and there should only be one feed, and everything's going to get all cleaned up, and it should be good to go. So yes, hopefully things are fine, but if you have any more issues, please let me know. Doing the best we can, but I have brought in some really competent tech support, and I think things will be getting better. On the plus side, the show is now available on YouTube, so if you want to catch us there, you can. I believe everything is set up. Big thanks to Eugene Sachs of GameCritics.com for helping me make that happen on the back end, where I believe this feed will go directly into YouTube, and you should see the brand new episodes populating there with the So Video Games logo. You'll find those at the GameCritics.com YouTube channel, which I will give you the address for in just like a second. And I needed that second to look it up because I have forgotten what it was. It is youtube.com/at GameCritics.com videos. So you'll get videos, interviews. Actually, a bunch of interviews are lined up right now. You'll be seeing those interviews drop pretty soon. We're going to be posting our video reviews, and then you'll also get So Video Games over there, just like everywhere else. So no video component, just the audio, but you know, same good show in one more convenient location. So hate to start the show with all this nonsense and technical jibber jabber and hassle and all that stuff, but I felt like I needed to say something because it was just like a giant mess, and I felt really bad for everybody who listened to the show and couldn't find it, or was finding too many of it, or like whatever. So anyway, hopefully things are fine. You're here, you're listening to me now. Hopefully that continues. Knock on wood that there's no more further problems. And if you have a further problem, please just reach out and let me know. Okay. On that related note, you may have just heard me say that I hired a tech support guy to help me clean up some of the stuff that needs to be cleaned up. Absolutely true. So, my costs, at least for the near term, are going to be going up a little bit. And I want to really pitch everybody listening to the show, even for a little while, if you could just kick in like $1 for like a while and help me get some of this tech stuff paid off, that would be like super mega appreciated. If you want to just give out of the goodness of your heart, that's awesome. I love you and would really appreciate that. If you want like a little quid pro quo, if you want something in exchange for your $1, happy to do that. Let me know what I can do to earn your dollar, at least for a little while. You want me to name check you on the show? You want to have me read something like questions, or do you want me to, I don't know, you want to nominate some topics? I don't know, man. Whatever it is that you guys want, please let me know. Whatever I can do. If I can get the Patreon up, at least for a little while, make sure that my tech guy is paid for, that would be great. So if you got an extra buck burning a hole in your pocket and you could toss it my way via the Patreon, that would be mega, mega, mega appreciated. Also, on a related note, my tech support guy is also going to be helping me out with GameCritics.com, so you can look forward to some changes over there. Some of it's back end that you guys are not really going to notice, but there's going to be some changes on the front end too. Nothing drastic, just to make it look a little nicer, make it function a little better. We have some pretty miserable mobile functionality and a couple issues that kind of just popped up every so often. Maybe you never noticed it, but I noticed it, and I kind of want to get these things fixed. So, another reason to kick in that buck if you like. But along those lines, if there's anything that you want to see from GameCritics.com, the website that I have run for the last 26 years, and I'm currently the editor for, you want more reviews, you want less reviews, you want interviews, you want more video, you want less video, you want reader polls, you want some kind of social engagement, like whatever it is that you want out of GameCritics.com, drop me a line, let me know. I'm taking all requests. I can't say that I will grant all of them, but I will certainly consider all of them. And anything I can do to earn your buck for a little while would be great. I'm happy to do a little exchange of goods and information and services in order to get all this stuff paid for. And if you want to just kick in and don't have a request, that's amazing too. I'll be giving shout outs to everybody who chips in, and I'm very happy to engage with y'all loyal listeners in any way that you would like. So please let me know what we can do to make this happen. Okay. Also, just a heads up on a semi-related note that I have completed Death Stranding 2. Now, ordinarily, I would bring this up in the circle backs, which are coming up in just a second. But it's a big topic. It's a big game. Although it kind of feels like it's cooling off. I feel like the conversation has kind of drifted away from Death Stranding 2. But that's okay. That's okay. We're not really bound by time or space here on this podcast. So we're going to do whatever we want to do. I know that Carlos Rodella, the former co-host of the show, he was just on, I believe it was the last episode. And he had already finished. That little guy had finished the game. And so now I have finished. We are on equal footing. I would really like to talk about the game in general, some spoiler stuff, some complaints, some positives, just different things we've noticed. Carlos wants to do the same. So I was hoping to have him on before I recorded this episode. Didn't work out, but we're going to get him on like ASAP, probably this week. I might do 2 episodes this week. So you can look forward to a special episode. It's going to be the Death Stranding 2 A to Z spoiler cast. I mean, we're not going to talk about like every single mission or anything like that, but everything in the game is going to be on the table. Story, character, writing, tech, design, anything at all, ups, downs, complaints, raves, whatever we got, and zero concern for spoilers. We're going to give you a full spoiler warning at the beginning of the show. It'll be well labeled. It's not going to catch you by surprise, but that is coming up. And so the reason I bring this up is if you are curious about any part of Death Stranding 2, if you have played it yourself and have thoughts, if you've heard things, if you want us to talk about certain aspects of it, if you want to talk about Hideo Kojima, if you want to talk about anything at all, let us know. We're taking all questions and comments for the Death Stranding 2 show, which will very likely be the next episode after this one, as long as I can nail Carlos down. So, if you've got any comments, questions, thoughts, ideas, feelings, vibes, anything at all on Death Stranding 2, send them in right now, and we will get them on the show. We'll read out your name, give you a shout out, and we will discuss anything and everything you want us to discuss. No problem. So look forward to that. That is coming up pretty soon. Any other housekeeping? Nothing really necessarily game related in terms of like news coming up, but I did pop into the Discord, which I'll mention in a second, and some of the folks in the Discord did give me a couple of topics they wanted me to talk about. So we're gonna take a couple quick questions here, and then if you have a question, you want me to read it out, or you want to have me read your name out in the show, happy to do that. Pop into the Discord and just like interact there, and we will do that next episode or whatever makes sense. First question comes from Superfan, my eternal bro, monster hunting friend, J Monster over in the UK. What's up, buddy? He of the Two Guys, Three Consoles podcast, which I just guested on a couple weeks ago. Great show. Really chill, laid back. Got a good, just kind of like bro hang vibe to it. I really recommend it. So, Two Guys, Three Consoles. If you can get on with the UK accent, I know some Americans might have a little trouble with that, but give it a shot. It's worth it, and I think it's a really fun show. So, cheers to those guys. J Monster says, "Hey, is your wife wanting a Switch 2 for DK Bonanza?" J Monster, good question, my friend. I gotta say no, but let me explain a little bit. I think no, because I don't think that Bonanza is on her radar. I think that we are just kind of like vaguely aware of it. And I mean, I think we saw a trailer or something a while ago, but at the moment, neither one of us is really jonesing for a Switch 2. I'm sure we're going to get it at some point. We are both huge Switch fans. I mean, I literally play my Switch every day, like without fail. Right before I go to bed, I play the Switch if I don't play it during the day. So I'm getting a ton of use out of my Switch right now. It's still like in heavy rotation, and I've got loads of games. Like literally I've got like 900 games in the backlog on the Switch, and I'm just waiting for, what am I waiting for? I don't know. I guess I just don't feel the urge to move up right now, to upgrade. I'm still pretty content with what I've got. I've got lots of stuff to play. No problems with the hardware. I'll get it eventually for sure, but I think maybe this time I'm going to let the bugs get worked out. I'll let the first early adopters kind of figure out what's good and bad about the system. Seems like there's a lot of game compatibility updates that are still coming. So with all the games I have in the backlog, game compatibility is really, really, really important to me, and I don't want to mess around with any problems there. So I don't think that either one of us is really on fire to upgrade right now. I mean, it's expensive. It's an investment for sure. So that's also, cost is a concern as well. I'm currently in the process of saving money to build my wife a porch. A porch is something that she really wants. I bet she wants a porch more than anything else in the world right now, even a Switch 2. And so I'm really focused on that. My wife is like the best person on earth. She's my best friend, literally my favorite person on this earth. And so I really want to make her happy by giving her a porch. I do not think I have the carpentarial skills to do that on my own. I could try, but I feel like the results would be a little disappointing, and I want her to have something nice, not really ramshackle. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be good. So I'm saving money to, at some point, someday, somewhen in the future, hire some carpenters to come build her a porch onto the house. There's also like the issue of like permits and blueprints and all that stuff. Oh, God, Jesus. It's like, oh man, it's a mess. Anyway, so I think that's really where my focus is right now. So if I bought a Switch, that would kind of take away from the porch fund, which is pretty slow and growing, I must say. So we're not really on fire, and I don't think that either one of us is really keeping a too close eye on the Switch 2 library. I'm sure that when we do upgrade that it looks fun to me. I know it looks fun to her. We'll totally go in on it. We'll probably just buy one copy and like trade it off back and forth using those friggin' virtual carts or whatever they call it. I forget what they call it, but I mean, we'll get to it. But I think, I don't know. Our head is not really in the Switch game right now. We got lots of stuff to play. We're both super busy with work and life, and I'm really focused on saving money for my wife's porch. And so, life's got to come first in this particular case, but we'll see. I mean, if something friggin' amazing dropped next week, maybe my tune would totally change. Maybe her tune would totally change. I don't know. But so far, I think we're okay to just bide our time for the moment. But we'll see. I mean, like I said, that could always change. If her favorite game dropped next week, or if my favorite game dropped next week, I could be talking out my ass. I could have a Switch 2 next week, and who knows what. Fuck the porch. So we'll see what happens. Up next, question from a recent addition to the Discord, and I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce this, so forgive me if I'm getting this wrong. I want to say it's Zebrastool, Zebrastuhl, Zebrastool. Let me know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry if I murdered that. I'm taking my best guess. So welcome to the Discord, by the way. It's nice to have you. We're all active participants. It's always nice to chat. And they gave me a question here. They would like to know what games I'm looking forward to in the second half of 2025. What am I excited for? Okay. Good question. Difficult question, because I kind of like live my life 1/4 mile at a time. I don't really look too far into the future because a lot of stuff can change, right? Like dates get delayed, or they get pumped up, or maybe there's a problem, or maybe a game doesn't come out because the studio closes because everybody's getting fired right now, or who knows what, right? And so like, as the editor of GameCritics.com, I get like, and this is not a joke, this is not hyperbole, I get hundreds of emails every single day talking about like, hey, here's this new game, here's a beta, here's an early access, here's an alpha, here's a playtest, here's some stuff, here's a demo, here's some other games, here's some codes. And like, it's like drowning in like a lot of white noise, right? And so in order to survive that and keep my brain intact, what I kind of tend to do is just like, what's out right now and what can a publisher give me a code for? And that's kind of what I focus on. And I kind of forget about all the rest. I don't really look that far forward. And just doing that, just keeping my eye on what's in my inbox right now, this moment, keeps me like way more than busy. I've got more than I can even cover, more than anybody at our site can cover. And we've got a whole bunch of guys who are writing for me at Game Critics. So that's a pretty good strategy that has worked out for me for the last couple of years. But I do thank you very much for your question, and I want to honor that question. So I did jump over to a couple of lists. It's really tough because everything's being updated in real time and, nothing's really locked down. But here's a couple things that I'm looking forward to for the rest of this year. Hopefully they will all be good. First up, and I think one that's coming pretty soon, it's called Discounty. This is a shop running simulation, like top-down, 2D, pixel-based. I'm planning to play it on the Switch. And it's about running your store, and I haven't really found a good store sim that I have enjoyed because they kind of end up being too dry. But this one seems like it's got the juice. You have a little store where you set out goods and you set the prices for them. You sell them, you make a profit. But it seems like there's also like a town that you can go into and lots of people to talk to and quests to do. And it seems like it's weird and creepy. So there's kind of like a weird, I don't know, like something's going on in the town kind of vibe to it. But then at the same time, you're running a store. That has got me kind of intrigued. So I'm looking forward to that one. Definitely looking forward to Baby Steps. Carlos and I talked about it last week. It's the really difficult, like physical sim where you're trying to like make a person walk by this like hyper complicated scheme using the PS5 controller. Lift up your leg, lift up, bend your knee, lift your ankle, twist your foot, like whatever. Like you do every step of it. And you kind of like negotiate these like difficult to walk through places. Looks like one of those masochistic, like physics based kind of things. And sometimes I really, really get into those. There's a couple in the genre that I have really connected with. And I am not necessarily someone who craves difficult games or difficulty in general, but I really do like these kind of wacky physics games. And if I feel like they're done well, the controls are dialed in, the challenge is on point, like I could be down for those. I've played a couple of really hard ones in the past, and I've had a pretty good time with that, although I've also been pretty frustrated by them. But Baby Steps looks like it's going to be something that might be worth me putting some time into. Beyond that, we've got Little Nightmares 3. I really enjoyed the first two games, despite not generally being a horror guy. But this one, it's not the usual horror. I'm just like so over like first-person psychological horror. Oh, so scary. Ugh, it's boring and tiresome to me. I really get tired of those dark hallways and jump scares and all that stuff. So I appreciate that Little Nightmares does something completely different. The third person kind of 2.5D-ish sort of approach. And the world is just really fucking weird. And the characters are weird and you never know what's going to happen. And it's really creepy too. The character designs are creepy. But it's almost like a platformer puzzle game, not really like a straight up like horror where you're just in the dark all the time. So I like Little Nightmares a lot. I finished the first two games. Had a great time with them, and I would definitely be up for a third one. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to Cairn, C-A-I-R-N. I talked about this one on the last episode. There's a demo up on PS5 right now, probably on PC as well. This is the super hardcore mountain climbing sim where you just approach a mountain and you just take a look at it, and there's no predetermined routes. There's no white lines or yellow lines to show where you can grab. You just kind of grab. There's a really neat stamina system. Pretty clever, actually. So I really liked what I saw in the demo. I played about maybe half an hour, 45 minutes of it, and I really wanted to play more, but I didn't want to have to like redo all that progress when the main game came out. So I stopped, but I liked it a lot, and I think it's going to be very cool. And the last thing that I will say as far as picks goes, Coffee Talk Tokyo. I'm a big fan of the Coffee Talk series. Loved the first game. Really liked the second one. Started it. I ended up dropping off of it. I think just because of life reasons. I got busy or something. But it's on my Switch still. I plan to come back to it and finish it. But I really like the Coffee Talk series. This is where you are in a urban fantasy setting, which is one of my favorite settings, where you're just like in a, like a real world coffee shop, but there's like demons and vampires and other supernatural creatures who just like are in the world with you and just have a different kind of reality, different diversity, I guess. Really like the writing of the first 2 games, really fun. The drink mechanic is simple and straightforward, but also complex enough to make you feel like you're doing something when you're playing the game. And then a lot of it really is about just the relationships, and serving people the correct drinks will open up dialogue paths, and doing the wrong drinks will shut those off. So lots of stuff there. I really like those games quite a bit. Looking forward to the third one. And I think that's all I picked so far. I'm sure there's going to be more. There's probably a lot of games I don't know. A lot of games that maybe I am not aware of coming this year. Maybe they're going to get released early. Maybe some that I'm looking forward to will get released late. Who knows? But those are some good picks that I think. And I'm pretty sure all of these are on track pretty confidently for the second half of 2025. So we should be seeing most of these. Nothing's ever confirmed until it's confirmed, but I think these are probably pretty confirmed. Next question comes from Zebra again. Zebra asks, did you ever play an MMORPG like World of Warcraft or Guild Wars? If not, do you feel like you missed it? I don't think I have ever played No. I mean, I think my brother really got into World of Warcraft like crazy for a while. And I went over to his house and watched him play it for a while. And I just was like, nah, not my thing. I think I played... Which was Final Fantasy? Which one was the MMORPG? Was it 13? No, that's not right. Whichever one was the big MMO, I played that for like a day, and I'm like, nah. I don't think I've ever really played more than those 2. I mean, I've seen them. I'm aware of them. But whenever no, I don't think that Warframe counts. No, because you only ever go on a mission with like 3 other people, and you do sorties all the time. Does that count? I mean, if Warframe counts, then yes, but I don't think it counts. I played Warframe for like a couple 100 hours, and I thought that was amazing. Had a great time. Would love to come back to it sometime. But if aside from Warframe, no, I don't think so. And I've seen a lot of them. And honestly, at this point in my life, when they show up, I just like delete the email or just move on. It's not something I'm interested in. I don't have the time to meet up with people. I don't have the desire to meet up with people. I'm not interested in doing grinding for loot or gear. Replaying raids to get better stuff. I haven't, I just don't think I'm that guy, which is fine. I don't feel like I missed out on anything because every time I look at one, I get kind of bored. So basically, I think the answer is probably no. I don't think I've ever like really, really gotten into one and played one, and I do not feel like I have missed out at all. I have so much stuff to play. I got a million single player games. I got, a couple hundred couch co-op games I could play with the wife if I wanted to. No, I'm fine. I'm good. Last question of the show comes from xsalty1, also known as Salty. And I guess I'm not sure what the intent is with that name. Salty, if you want to let me know. I guess I'm not sure if it's like xsalty1, meaning that perhaps Salty was salty before, but now they're not salty anymore, like they're x-salty? Or did they just put that in there because the regular salty one was taken? Or I don't know what that means, but I'm going to call you Salty. And if you want something else, please let me know. Happy to oblige. Salty says, when you are sick at home or otherwise bummed for reasons, what games are your comfort games? What feelings do these games invoke that make you go to them in these circumstances? Do you have any games you play to feel a certain way or to invoke certain emotions, i.e. a power fantasy game might make someone feel a sense of control in their life? What do you think? Okay, so I think in general, no, I don't really go back to any game ever for anything. I don't replay games basically ever. I think the only real exception to the rule, I guess, number one, Marvel Puzzle Quest, because I just play that kind of like every night, like usually when I'm brushing my teeth. I just kind of like, bust out my phone and do a couple matches while I'm, cleaning my teeth before I go to bed. So I don't think that really counts. That's just kind of like a daily habit. And side note, boy, the developers have fucked that game sideways. They changed engines. I'm not sure what engine they were on, but they moved it to something else just recently. And oh my God, they fucked it so hard. The game is so weird and janky. And everybody in my group that still plays, we've all been playing this game for like 10 years. We're all just like so pissed off with it. Like it just doesn't, the animations don't work. There's like these weird freezes in the game and stuff. It's like painful. Anyway, not what you asked. Sorry, tangent. So that doesn't count, I don't think. And really the only game in recent memory that I have replayed at all is Death Stranding, the original one. I think I've replayed that 3. I'm on my 4th replay now, and I'm just kind of picking at it. I like that game just because I like the way that you look at traversal and how that is kind of the challenge, and it's pretty chill. So I guess that's probably the only game that comes to mind, and really the only one I've ever replayed, because I just like the feeling of peace when you're like walking up the slopes and down the hills, and you get the good vista going, and sometimes the music kicks in, and it's just you in a box, and you're kind of walking. I don't know. I kind of zen out at that moment when you're not like fighting those bandit guys, or where there's no BTs around or something like that. When you're just doing the straight up cargo missions, I find that to be pretty zen. But I wouldn't say that I go to it when I need to feel that way. I just like the way that it feels, and I just come back to it sometimes. I don't honestly think that I ever play any game when I need to feel a certain way, or when I am feeling a certain way. If I'm sick, and I have not been sick, knock on wood, I haven't been sick since 2020. So I don't get sick that often, but when I did get sick, I usually just watch horror movies. That's kind of what I do to get through sickness. So I'll just watch a bunch of horror movies, or maybe like a bunch of movies that like I know my wife doesn't want to watch, where they're too weird or too dumb or too gory or something or whatever. If my wife has like kind of given the thumbs down, I'll keep a list of those, and I'll watch those unapproved films whenever I'm feeling sick. Otherwise, I don't think I really play any games. Games don't really serve that function in my life. I think that I come to games just for the discovery of the new. I want to see new ideas. I want to see creativity, interesting ideas in the way that storytelling unfolds in the game space. Visual design is really strong for me. I like seeing new worlds and new character designs and like flashy new abilities, clever tricks and things. So I come to it for excitement, and just to kind of see what's new and what can keep my brain interested. But I don't think I use games in that way. I don't think I do. If I'm feeling sad, I'll get a hug from my wife, or I'll just like hang out with my dogs or something, and I'll watch horror movies sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. If I'm feeling really, really down sometimes, and I think there's a lot to feel down about, I'll watch like a super scary, super gross horror movie, because I heard somewhere that if you watch something that's really scary, it kind of resets your brain chemicals, and kind of like it's kind of like a reboot for your emotional system. And I find that to be kind of true, for me at least. So I think horror movies more than video games. And along that same line, I don't really rewatch any horror movies. I don't think I really come back to anything. If there's any movie I watch more than once, probably Pacific Rim, the first one. Whenever that movie's on, I can't not watch it. Same thing for Big Trouble in Little China. If that movie's on, I will stop everything that I'm doing and just watch that. But other than that, no. So I hate to disappoint you, but I just don't think games serve the purpose of my life that you were describing in your question. Hopefully that answers it. Hopefully you're not too disappointed. Sorry I didn't have a better answer for you. All right, folks, before we get to the main part of the show here, quick heads up on the Patreon supporting the show. I talked about this a little bit earlier. I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but basically just to recap again, all the costs of So Video Games are paid out of my pocket. Same thing for GameCritics.com. And actually, we are at a point now where both the website and the podcast do need some tech maintenance. I have hired a guy, like I said. If nobody contributes, I will do my best to afford it out of my pocket. But if you like this show, you like what I'm doing, if you listen every week, it would be amazing if you could chip in literally just like $1 a month. If everybody listening chipped in $1, I could get this whole thing paid. We get all the maintenance done, everything up to date. It would be totally amazing and fun and done. So if you like what I do, you like the show, if you can chip in just $1 a month, that would be fantastic. If you can't afford it, I totally get it. Times are hard and no pressure. I'm never going to paywall anything. I'm not going to kick you out if you can't pay. But if you can pay, please think about it. That would be great. Also, we have a brand new YouTube channel, youtube.com/@gamecritics.com videos. We are having a bunch of interviews in the pipe right now. I'm not sure that they're done. I think they're going to be done pretty soon. We've got at least 3 different interviews coming. We've got a bunch of game trailers, and we're only posting trailers for stuff that we personally like. So if you see a trailer on our channel, you know for a fact that somebody on staff has chosen that, kind of curated that out of all of the different videos that are out there. So we're not going to just post every friggin' trailer. We're only going to post stuff that we like. You will also get Eugene Sachs's video reviews. Any video reviews we do will go there. And then you will also get this very show, So Video Games, will be channeled. No, they will not be channeled. They will be funneled, and they will be channeled. And I guess they will be channeled also to the YouTube channel. So if you can't find it anywhere else, you can always find it at YouTube over there. All right, folks, as y'all know, I like to start the main portion of the show with circle backs, where I circle back to things that I've covered in depth on previous episodes. Not going to get into all the nitty gritty, so just think of this as a quick update to let you know if my thoughts have changed on something for better or for worse after spending more time with it. All right, first circle back is to Missile Command Delta. I talked about this one in the last episode. Really like it a lot. It takes the Atari Classic Arcade and just updates it like in bonkers banana ways, where it now is a first-person game that has kind of a Stranger Things slash war games kind of vibe to it. There's spooky stuff. You're walking through an abandoned military base. You talk to friends. You're trying to uncover mysteries and solve puzzles. And then when you do get to the Missile Command stuff, it's kind of a turn-based puzzle game. It's a fucking wild reimagining. I really like it a lot in general. Although after I kept playing, I will say I did get a little bit frustrated with it. I think the lack of a minimap, which in general to me is just something that like basically every game should have. Very, 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 very few developers can get away legitimately without having a minimap. Like FromSoft is one of them. Maybe the Liza P. NeoWiz, I think. They can probably get away with one. But in general, I don't think level designs are strong enough in video games to like absolve them of the need to include a minimap. So even though the level is pretty small, I often got turned around and I couldn't quite remember where places were. It's not a big deal, but it's just kind of like a small annoyance that kind of never went away. So I think a minimap would have been great. I did find some of the puzzles to be pretty frustrating. The environmental puzzles can be kind of tricky. I often overlooked something and then I would be stuck because I didn't notice a little detail in one of the rooms or something. So that was kind of frustrating. And as far as the puzzling goes with the missiles, some of those are pretty cool, but like you have to clear a certain, percentage of play. Like you have to use only a certain number of missiles and not take any damage in order to pass these puzzles. And I could pass them all with like the basic pass, but in order to unlock some of the doors, you needed to like quote unquote like ace them. And I was so stuck on some of these, man. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like how can I solve this one puzzle with only 2 missiles? I don't get it. I need like at least 4. And oh my God, I can't get past this one without taking any damage. How does anybody do this? I just don't know. And I couldn't find any resources online. I even went so far as to talk to the developers on Blue Sky, and I'm like, yo, I'm stuck on these 2 puzzles. Here's some screenshots. Can you guys help me out? And they seemed like really fine folks, but they never got back to me with any answers. And so I'm like, okay, I can't just like bash my head against this thing. Maybe other people who've got better heads for puzzles will get further than I will. I don't think this is a particularly difficult game, but I think it's just not on my brainwave. Like my brain just wasn't quite gelling with how the puzzles went, and I was kind of getting stuck more often than I liked. When the game was flowing, though, I really liked it a lot. I was having a lot of fun, when I was able to solve things, but my frustration grew pretty quickly. I got to one point in the game where I needed to have like a pen and a paper to write stuff down, and at that point I was out. Like I know some people really dig that, but for me, whenever I need to like actually like write something down or draw something to figure it out, I'm like, that's, for me anyway, a step too far. Not saying that's a bad or not even really criticism, but just personally doesn't work for me, and so I was out at that point. But I still think this game is fucking cool. I think it's super original. I really like what they did. I guess I'm just like too mentally slow to figure out some of the puzzles, and that's okay. We're all on our own speed. This game defeated me, but I really liked what I played, and I, if I had had easier access to an FAQ or a walkthrough, I would have gladly pushed past the part where I got stuck and kept going, but I couldn't find any walkthroughs, couldn't find any online information, and the developers did not have the ability to get back to me for whatever reason, so I had to just stop. I just was too frustrated, but I really, really like it a lot. That is not like a huge criticism. It's just a fact. My other circle back this week is Dungeons of Dreadrock 2, playing this on the Switch. It came out a while ago. In fact, I'm not even sure if it was this year. Let me just look it up. Okay, through the magic of podcasting, I just went and Googled it. It is not a this year game, but it was like December of 2024. So it just barely missed this year by like a hair. But Dungeons of Dreadrock 2 is a brilliant game. I started it in December, and then I really liked it a lot. I got about halfway through, and then I fell off of it for some reason. Again, I think it was just life, review responsibilities, work, or whatever, and I just kind of fell off and forgot about it. But it's a brilliant game, and the reason I'm bringing it back up is because I stopped playing it like probably in January or something like that, and I kind of forgot about it. And then out of the blue, the developer, Christoph Mittermeier, sent me a message, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I saw your coverage, it was amazing." And I'm like, "What? I covered this thing back in January. What are you talking about?" And it turns out that he had caught one of the So Video Games that had just been ported to YouTube. Apparently he's pretty, YouTube savvy, and so it appeared as though I had just covered it, even though I covered it back in January. So he thought I was coming back to it. And I was like, "Oh gosh, I'm so sorry for the confusion. No, I actually covered it back then. But now that you bring it up, I actually do love your game because I think you're a pretty brilliant dude." And so even though it was kind of a misunderstanding, I mean, Christoph is great. I love him. And he's been kind enough to send me codes for both of his games. And I'm glad that he did reach out and get in touch, because I immediately brought it back to the top of my queue, started playing it again. I'm about a quarter of the way through now. Dungeons of Dreadrock 2 is genuinely just like a genius game. Every bit of it is just so smart and so tight and so tuned. Same thing for Dungeons of Dreadrock 1. I mean, they are kind of like Zelda overhead, kind of like 16-bit kind of feeling games, very similar to like old school Zelda. And I think the pixel art is wonderful, lots of little details, and each level in the game is basically a single screen puzzle. But Christoph is pretty brilliant because he does lots of stuff that is outside of the box thinking, lateral thinking. He'll involve different floors that are connected to each other. He'll have items that carry back and forth between floors. He'll have a lot of careful observation puzzles. He'll have some timed action puzzles. He'll have some deduction puzzles. I mean, there's all sorts of, I feel like every floor is a different kind of challenge, and it honestly stretches my brain into 9 different ways to play this game. And it's really tough to play right before bed because I'm getting sleepy and I need my fully awake brain to play this. But let me just say, if you haven't played either Dungeons of Dreadrock 1 or 2 and you're on the Switch, you owe it to yourself, or I guess PC, whatever. You owe it to yourself to check these out. If you like really clever puzzle games, if you like 16-bit kind of action puzzlers, I mean, they just don't come better than this. And I'm not trying to inflate Christoph's ego, but in this case, I think that praise is certainly deserved. Tight, economical, fat-free design. He gives you tons of hints for each level if you need some hints, which is great. I think just learning the rules of the game is really brilliant. It's so rare that I see a so carefully designed, so carefully executed project that is just so delicious to play. It's really, really great. So, Christoph, I apologize for not finishing this before. That is my bad for sure. I should have finished this back in January and reviewed it properly. But I'm back on the game now, playing it some more, and really enjoying. I mean, it's just brilliant stuff. It's just really brilliant stuff. My only criticism of Dungeons of Dreadrock 2, and this is kind of a really minor one, is that I think it makes a lot more sense in terms of story, and there is some story in this game, if you have played through Dungeons of Dreadrock 1. I think it's basically you have to start at number 1, go through that game, understand who the characters are, find out what the gist is, and then go into number 2. And to be fair, I mean, Christoph, when I was discussing this with him, he's like, I think most people coming to this will probably have already played number 2, so I did not give a lot of nods to explain what's going on, and I get that. I think that's fair. But also, as someone who played number 1 a while ago, I kind of forgot what happened back then. I think I probably played 500 games between then and now, and so my memory is not as sharp as it used to be. A little primer to refresh me about who the characters are and what's going on, I think would have been good. Like a recap, 30-second recap, 1-minute recap would have been good. So I think that's really the only place where I think Dreadrock number 2 could use a little bit of sprucing up. I think an intro to who the characters are and what's going on would be good. If you've played it right off the back of number 1, no problem. But if it's been a while and you forget, I think that's really the only weakness. Otherwise, mechanically, in terms of design, graphics, everything, it's just the fucking tops. It's a really, really top shelf gold star game. So check out Dungeons of Dreadrock 1 and 2. They are marvelous on the Switch. I'm sure they're just as good on PC, but check them out. Oh, you do yourself a favor. Take it from me. If you listen to this show, you're probably going to like these games. I kind of guarantee it. And also, Christoph, thanks for bringing it back to my radar. I am grateful for the reminder. All right, folks, we are now into the section of the show where we start talking about new games. Now, full disclosure, a warning, red flag warning. If you are the kind of listener that does not like negative reviews, if you only want to hear sunshine and rainbows and positive raves all the time, this particular episode is not for you. I ended up playing a number of bummers this week for one reason or another. I'll get into that. Let me look at the agenda here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 bummers and 1 good one. So if that's too much negativity for you, I don't blame you. Feel free to bounce and come back next week. I'm sure we're going to talk about some stuff. Also, I've got the Death Stranding 2 spoiler cast coming up with Carlos pretty soon. But just so you know, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here with like a series of games. And if you don't like to hear me criticizing games, or you don't want to hear like, negative views on something, this is your fair warning to bounce, because I tell it like it is. I'm pretty straightforward. I don't really pull punches. And if I don't like a game, I will tell you about that. I do not only feature good games on this show. And sometimes, people ask me like, why do you even talk about these games? Well, I'll tell you why. I don't only talk about games I love because, number one, I don't always know which games I'm going to love beforehand. I play a lot of games. At this count, in fact, I just counted. Right now, as of July 22nd, I know I started recording on the 21st. It's now the 22nd. I have played exactly 150 games. According to my calculations, that is 203 days in the year 2025 so far. And if you divide that by 150 games that I've played so far, that is 1.3 games per day. So that's a lot of games that I play, and I do not know ahead of time if I'm going to like them. I'm open. I'm willing to give like anything a shot, and I need content for the show. So if I play a bunch of games and they're not good and I get rid of those and I try to only focus on the good things, I'm not going to be able to do a show. It certainly wouldn't be a weekly show, and you wouldn't hear about games to avoid if you like that kind of thing. And also, I think it's beneficial to hear criticisms, because criticism is what helps us get better. I teach people, and when I teach them, I do give them praise, but I also give them critiques, and the critiques help them get better. If you don't address the reality of a situation, you can't really fix it. And so maybe developers out there listening to the show, or people who think about game design listening to the show, will hear some of my words, and maybe that'll help them think about, what design means and how to improve things in the future. I don't know. Who knows? I feel like there's value in it, right? Anyway, long story short, I'm about to rag on like 5 games in a row. So if you don't want to hear that, maybe skip these games or just bounce on this episode and then come back next week or whatever. So fair warning. Okay. First game is Neon Noodles. This is played on PS5. This is a game where it's kind of like an automation game where you're supposed to set up like little conveyor belts and little stations to like produce certain kinds of food. The story is that you're like, I want to say you're like a released inmate or something in like a Blade Runner future, and your job is to prepare food for people. I guess that's how you're like doing your social rehab or whatever. Story is pretty minimal. There's not a lot of it in the part that I saw, but to be fair, I didn't get very far. I like the idea of this game. I think setting up little conveyor belts to make food is interesting. I don't play a lot of these automation games, so I'm not very versed in the genre. So I was thinking this one might be a good one because it's on PlayStation, so it's been, mapped to controller and it's on a console. Maybe hopefully it's not like one of the mega heavy PC ones, and I can give it a shot, and I was excited to try it. Oh my gosh, I had the worst time with it, and I strongly believe it's because of the tutorial. The developers' brainwaves and my brainwaves are like polar opposites. Things that make sense to the developer did not make sense to me, and I was struggling to get through the tutorial. I wish that was not true, but I got stuck on the second part of the tutorial because I just did not understand what the developers were trying to tell me. They were not able to communicate it clearly. I believe that they understand what they are doing, but in order to have a successful game and a successful tutorial, you need to be able to take your ideas out of your own head and put them out in a way so that anybody who is not you can understand them. And I feel like that did not happen here. In the second part of the tutorial, there was a big misunderstanding about input and output. I think there was 2 ways to see this. So for example, I needed to chop like 20 avocados, and there was like an input and an output, and the tutorial did not give an example of like what you're supposed to do. It was just like, here's the buttons, push the buttons and go. And I'm like, okay, this should be pretty simple, right? But we totally misunderstood each other. For example, I thought that output meant an avocado was going to come from the output. I would chop it and it would go into the input. I would deposit the avocado in there, and then that would be it. Nope. Totally the opposite. The input is where the avocado comes from, and then you chop it and then you drop it in the output. I think there's a case to be made for either way, but the developers didn't explain it in the tutorial. They made a little video, and they even have little terms. You can go back and rewatch it, but they didn't show what you're supposed to do. This whole thing could have been easily alleviated if they had simply shown you what to do. I'm not familiar with this genre, and they should really know that people on console are probably not as acclimated to these types of games as people on PC are. So that had me stuck forever because not only did you have to understand what the words meant, you had to like arrange the conveyor belts in a certain way. And if you didn't understand what you were doing, then it was like impossible. That just got super fucked. And then later on, I feel like it was like tutorial 4 or something like that. You're supposed to get like a robot that you program to pick up, I want to say it's tomatoes or maybe it was lemons. Like it was something like you get the robot to like pick up the thing, move it over a couple spaces and then put it down and then cut it or something. Like number one, I didn't even know where the robot was. And number two, I didn't know how it worked. Again, completely not explaining what I'm supposed to do. Like they just throw you into it. And I'm sure it makes perfect sense if you've played 1,000 of these games, but I haven't. I didn't know what was even going on. I was like, where's the robot? How do I program it? What's going on? I just really needed a step-by-step tutorial to get me off on the right foot. And I think I could have taken it from there, but the tutorial was so fucking miserable. I just could not figure it out. And I just got so stuck. I mean, if anybody wants an example of a poor tutorial, this is probably one of the worst ones I've played in quite some time. I actually couldn't make it through the tutorial because it was so poorly done and confusing. So I don't need this stress. I didn't need that frustration. I bounced without even finishing the tutorial. Laugh at me if you want, but I feel like this game was incredibly non-intuitive and obtuse. And I feel like the developers absolutely did not fulfill their duty of constructing a satisfactory tutorial that would be good for all players. Hard fail on that one. So Neon Noodles, I balanced. It was just so frustrating and a good example of you cannot count on your audience thinking the exact same way that you do. You have to kind of quote unquote dummy proof at least your tutorial to get people to understand what you're doing, because not everybody's brain works the way that yours does. So, ugh, man, that was so frustrating. Next up is Nova Hearts. This is a visual novel slash, I don't know, some light RPG elements. It's about a girl who goes back home after having some kind of like bad experience at college, and she wants to kind of just reset. She reconnects with some old friends, and then at the same time, weird things happen in town. Like all of a sudden they get superpowers, and then there's these monsters that show up, and some people are getting transformed into monsters, and so nobody really knows quite what's going on. But it's also super queer friendly, and it's also kind of like a dating sim a little bit. And then you like spend most of the game texting back and forth with characters on your phone, and you have some choices to like respond to them. And there's also like a relationship meter where you kind of gauge how close you are with certain people. And then you go back to turn-based battles when you get a second. When you meet a monster, you'll go into like side view, good guys on the left, bad guys on the right. There's a timeline, which is kind of used in more strategic games where you'll see who's going to go next. And then you kind of plan appropriately about, you know, who's going to strike, and certain strikes take longer to execute. Sometimes you're going to do a team battle if your timeline lines up with a teammate's timeline. That's kind of how it goes. I think the art is pretty cute. I think the premise is a good one. Although I will say I did not really, in general, care for this overall. I think number one, for a game like this that is so character forward and cute, it really needs voice acting. There's no voice acting in this, and it just really, really, really needed it badly. I don't often say that, but I was just really wanting to hear these characters emote and to connect with them as people. And I think a part of that was missing was like there was no voices. So I think that was really missed, sorely missed. I do appreciate the art, so cute. I really appreciate that it is inclusively queer. That is really good. Always up for more diversity, more inclusion, which is great. But I feel like the RPG battles kind of let it down. I think I could have just powered through doing the texting and choices. But when you get to the battle parts, the battle system feels very slow and stodgy. And it's just like all the battles take too long. I think all the enemies have too much life. I don't think the timeline system works as well as it should. I could always combo with like one of my teammates. You have a team of 3 eventually. And me and this one person could combo all the time, and I could never get myself to combo with the other person. The timelines just never worked out, and I couldn't figure out why not. You always feel kind of weak and underpowered. There's not like a big skill tree. It feels like it was thrown in there to kind of like break up the texting, but honestly, I think the texting would have been fine if they had just like had some voice acting, maybe done a couple different events that were like heavily resolve around the texting. I really didn't need the combat. It did not feel entertaining to me, and it just was, just not good. I will say, as far as the texting itself goes, interface is fine, but I feel like it goes pretty fast. the game kind of moves at a breakneck pace, and I feel like you don't really get a lot of time to get to know these characters in an organic way. It feels a little bit forced because I feel like the team is trying to like, I'm not sure how long the ultimate runtime is. It's probably 5 hours or something like that, I'm guessing. So they probably are trying to do a lot in a pretty short amount of time, but it just feels a little bit too rushed and not natural. And sometimes when you get choices in the game, it feels like your responses are either not what you want to say, or you'll say something and it didn't turn out the way you thought it was going to turn out. Not all the time, but there's more than a few times when I was like, that feels weird, or I didn't mean to say that or something. So I think this is a good start for the developer. I think it's a really promising start. I think it just needs like more polish, a little bit more depth in some places. Voice acting would have been great, and I think a revamp of the combat system would have been really, really welcome. It's not something that I think is a disaster by any means, not at all, but I think it just needed just a little bit more time in the oven, I think. So I kind of bounced on it, but I think it's a good start, and I would really encourage the developers to keep going on the path that they're on. Like, maybe invest in some voice actors, really work on the texting, like make it deeper and wider, maybe make the conversations feel a bit more organic. And I really don't think the combat is where it's at. I don't think that adds very much to it. If you want to have combat, I mean, maybe make it streamlined, quicker, something where it's not so much of an obstacle, but it felt like an obstacle to my enjoyment of the game rather than adding to it. So there you go. Nova Hearts. Next game is called Cats Away. This is I thought it was going to be a turn-based tactics game, but it's actually not. This is kind of an RPG, but there's also a really heavy real-time element to it. The story is that you play as 3 sisters who their dad has disappeared. It's very anime kind of aesthetic. They look like teen girls. Not my favorite aesthetic, but whatever, it's fine. You're in a world where there are also cats who are bipedal and can talk, and they are your friends. And you have a warship that goes on water, and it has a bunch of cannons on it. Has 3 different loadouts, loadout A, B, and C. You can change those the way you like. And so the story is pretty straightforward anime stuff, just like, where's dad? And, oh, darn it, these bad guys. And it just was really, really not engaging at all. Didn't find it particularly funny or amusing or cute. It was just like anime stuff that just did not clear the bar for me. And I was hoping that the combat would be great. But when you are on the map, after you get done talking to people in like, typical JRPG fashion, you go to different nodes on this map, world map, and it's like a water-based world. So like there's lots of stuff on the ocean since you're a boat. That makes sense. When you hit an enemy, you go inside this like big circular arena and you cruise your boat around in real time. You control it like an action game. And at first that was kind of cool, where you have cannons that auto fire depending on like what range you get to. So that was kind of fun. You don't have to like worry about aiming or anything like that, but you do have to worry about positioning. Kind of like when you play like a pirate game like Black Flag or something, where your ship cannons are only pointing a certain way. So like if you want the front cannon, you got to make sure you're pointed towards. If you want to use the broadside cannons, you got to like turn to the left or the right to make sure those are pointed the right way. You've got a rear cannon, etc., etc. You get the idea. So at first that was fine, but after a couple minutes, I realized like basically the battles all play out the same. Like there weren't a lot of not a lot of variety happening. You don't really get any power-ups during the battle. There's nothing really to spice it up. And so you just kind of use whatever loadout you have, which I guess is fine. But after I played the game for a little while and I changed my cannons a few times, it didn't really ever feel different. You set up one loadout for anti-air. You set up one loadout for long range. You set up one loadout for short range. And then, you swap out the guns, but the guns aren't really that different. They're just like, +5 attack or +7 attack or something, like real incremental stuff. Now, to be fair, I did not get that far. Maybe there are some crazier guns later on. I'm not really sure, but you do also get like a little, I don't know, like a boat launcher on your boat. So you can launch a little mini boat that goes around and chases some enemies down. You also get a plane launcher, so you can launch little airplanes to chase your enemies down. They don't do a ton of damage. They get blown up pretty quickly. I didn't find those to be very effective. I found it was more effective just to kind of pilot around the arena and just like focus on the actual gunplay. But all the battles just felt like they played out the same. Even though I changed out my loadout a few times, it didn't really feel that different. It started feeling very repetitive, like really quickly. And I just was not interested in doing these like really incremental stat ups or something. +1 attack, +2 attack, +5 reload or something like that. It was just like, it's just not enough variety. And it started feeling just like stodgy and staid, like really quick. So between a story that was not engaging and gameplay that was also not engaging, I bounced out of this one pretty quick. If you love anime girls or you love anime cats and you love the idea of being on the ocean, I mean, maybe there's something here for you. It just feels like a pretty shallow experience where most of the enjoyment probably comes from like micro managing the stats on your boat and then kind of replaying these battles over and over to min-max it out, I guess. But it just was not that exciting for me. I was hoping for something a little bit different, and it did not deliver. So Cats Away, not my jam. Next up was Dustwind Resistance. This is kind of an isometric PC-style RPG. Played it on PS5, but I believe it's on all the consoles. Very reminiscent of something like the original Fallout before Bethesda took it over way back in the day. Kind of a 3/4 view, wander around, talk to characters, pick up a lot of equipment, get into battles with people. It really looks at a glance like an homage to Fallout. This is a post-apocalyptic game. You play as a guy who is, I don't know, like the leader of his village or something. You go through like a little tutorial when you were a kid and your dad teaches you how to survive. And then the game fast forwards when the game begins. I'm not sure where your dad is, but you're like the leader of the village. And then raiders come out of wherever raiders come from, and they like fuck things up at your place, and you got to like, take care of them and take some revenge. It is very reminiscent of like stuff you might have played in the 90s, if you're old enough to have played games back in the 90s. Graphics wise, it looks like it's back then. Menus are kind of like really rough and feel kind of cobbled together. There's not really a lot of polish on any part of this game. Lots and lots of rough edges. Navigation is kind of weird. Navigation for AI characters is pretty bad. I think the menus are hard to read. There's also like, encumbrance and stuff, and you have to like fiddle with that a lot. It's kind of weird to equip stuff. It all just feels very awkward, and it's almost like back in the day when we didn't know how to develop games properly, and developers were trying to figure it out as they went, and people were experimenting, and you didn't know if this was going to work and what should go in a menu and what shouldn't. And that's all been solved since then. Like we have thoroughly solved all those issues, and to do something like this that feels very much like an homage to the games from that period is fine, but you don't really want to let go of all of the design knowledge we've gained since that time. You don't want to have something that is as crude feeling as it was back then. And this game feels like a relic from that time, and not in a good way. It feels very rough. Text is really tiny. At one point, you have to heal yourself as part of the tutorial, and the healing took so long I thought the game glitched out, but actually it just took like that long. You start doing the combat, and it's just really just janky. There's some real-time elements to the combat where characters will rush you, and you have to like walk around in real time and take pot shots at them and stuff like that. I think one of the very first battles we did, I had a dog, a friend, and I think it was me, 3 of us, I believe. And we got attacked by these little fleshy goblin dudes. And the combat was so rough. Like we were walking around, I shot my dog in the leg, like as part of the battle. And I felt terrible, number one, because I shot my dog, but I also felt frustrated because I'm like, dude, come on. Like this is really awkward and weird. So once I healed my dog back up, we walked around for a little while. There's no mini map again. Game really, really needs a mini map. Absolutely needs a mini map. So that was frustrating. And then we got to the main part of the town. I walk up to the front gates of the town where the raiders have taken over. The raider comes out to meet me, and he's like, "Hey man, we've taken over this town. You better get out of here." And the very next thing, he shot us, and it was a team wipe. Like we all died, and I had to reload the game. And I'm like, bro, I walked up to where I thought the quest began. We had a dialogue, and at the end of the dialogue, I automatically get killed. And it's not one of those battles where you have to die and the game keeps going. It's like I died and I had to reload and I had to try something else. And I'm like, dude, no. That's not how you make a game. That's not what you do. You don't lure somebody to the beginning of the village and then team wipe them when they get there. That is a dirty ass trick. That is not something that you do, especially when someone is still trying to learn your game. I did not appreciate this game at all. It feels honestly pretty miserable to play. It feels like it's skipping all of the advancements we've made in like the last friggin' 30 years or whatever. It's too rough. It's too rough. I can't imagine anybody playing through this and having a good time. Do not recommend at all. Dustwind Resistance is something that certainly needed like 19 more layers of polish. Next game is called Date Z. This is a visual novel. Played it on the PlayStation. It's also on PC. I think it's probably on everything. where you play a guy who is going to school, high school, and you have, I think, ultimately 4 or 5 different girls that you can date. At the same time, a zombie apocalypse happens, and you have to deal with that as well. So, okay, cool. I like visual novels. I like dating simulators, although I'm not like a big fan of like the high school thing, but whatever. And zombie games are fine in my book, and so I figured this was worth a shot. I will say the art is okay. I think it's all right. It looks a little bit like it might be AI generated. I'm not sure of that. There was no confirmation. But I will, for the sake of this review, say that it has not been AI generated, but it kind of looks like a little bit. But it's cute. It's cute enough. I think some of the writing was funny. I did laugh a couple times at some of the clever things that happen. But it's pretty straightforward, and it's kind of hard to tell what choices will affect what. Pretty quickly, once you begin the game, you get introduced to a time travel mechanic where you can replay, go back in time to make different choices. And so, like, if you talk to somebody and you end up like making them mad, you can rewind really quickly and then like replay the choice to like see what the other choice is, which is fine. I think that's fine. There's also a map that shows you all of the path branching. So if you want to find all the routes and find all the dialogues, you can go back and do that. I'm not the biggest fan of that type of visual novel play. I don't like the concept of like having to play the same game like 5 times in a row and making different choices each time to see all of the routes before you get the final route. Not my jam. I don't usually like to put that much time into visual novels. I like kind of a one and done sort of thing. But I do appreciate they give you the map so you can see exactly where you want to go. And in general, it works. It works okay. But I think there's 2 big problems with Date Z. Number 1, lots of typos. Tons of typos. And I'm the editor of a games website, so seeing this many typos is absolutely unacceptable. It feels like nobody even took a look at this. There's a lot of really obvious ones that crop up. I mean, just in the span of a few minutes, I saw multiple typos. So it's not just like one wrong comma or maybe like a wrong apostrophe or something. There's like multiple typos. So I don't know where this game came from, if maybe English was not their primary language or whatever, but the script was in unacceptable shape. Like they really needed to be cleaned up. So that was not okay. Secondly, I did not realize that the part that you get, you can download, I believe, the first part for free, but the rest of the game is all DLC. So you can see about, I don't know, an hour? Maybe not even, I don't know. I got to the end of the DLC and it was like, oh, would you like to continue and play the rest? And I'm like, sure. Oh, I got to buy it? Like, no. The part that I got to play wasn't really more than a teaser. So that part was like, eh. And the thought of having to put in like money for each one of the extra routes. You could pay for each route individually with, I believe each route was one different girl, or you could buy like a package for all of it. I would much rather they just like bundle the whole thing and sell it as one price. And I guess some of you out there are saying, well, so what? Like, what's the difference between buying it piece by piece or buying it as one thing? I don't know. It just felt like they kind of were nickel and diming me. I would rather have a cohesive product that was like really well integrated and sold for one price rather than picking and choosing. I mean, maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. It just felt kind of bad to get to the end of the free part and then have like, like go to the PSN store pop up and like, seeing it was on sale too. I think if I had bought everything, I believe it was on sale for $15, which to be perfectly honest is not a bad price for an entire visual novel, but I don't know how long the other routes are. If they're all the same length as the route that I played, that would not be a good deal. That would mean the game was pretty short. And I don't know that would be worth it. So I don't know. And if it was full price, if it's not on sale, I want to say it was like $30, which definitely doesn't feel worth it. So I don't know. I mean, I think maybe there's potential here. I did laugh a couple times and I like the idea of being able to go back really quickly and redo your choices. Dating during a zombie apocalypse seems kind of fun, but this just felt a little too cash grabby to me. And especially with all the typos, it really didn't feel like anybody put any effort into the text. And if in a visual novel, that's half your fucking game right there, man. Like if you're not taking care of the novel part, then all you got is the visual, and the visual is fine, but not enough to carry the game. So I feel like this one needed, I don't know, just like another pass or two from a decent editor. And folks, if you want to hire me, happy to do that for you. Get in touch. But yeah, I gave this one a pass and did not buy any of the additional DLC routes, and I was out. Last game of the show, and this is the good one. It's Curious Expedition 2. I talked about this a million years ago, and in fact, let me take a quick Google break here. Okay. Google tells me this game originally came out in 2021. It is now 2025, so I probably talked about it a couple hundred episodes ago. Don't blame me if you don't remember. I do not remember what number it was, but I did play this a while ago. This is a top-down, hand-drawn roguelike, kind of set in that era. Is it the Victorian era? I'm not up on my UK eras, but like the era where everybody was like a cheerio pip pip adventurer going to the darkest continent to, like, you know, find undiscovered lands that have already been discovered by the indigenous people, that kind of a thing. So top down, hand drawn art, very colorful art, roguelike. You play an explorer with a team of people that you can choose. You can hire and fire people to kind of round out your team to go to these various continents and find different things. Sometimes you get a task where it's like find a golden pyramid. Sometimes it's like map the continent. Sometimes it's like find a certain animal or something like that or whatever. And underneath it all, there is like another story where you're finding ruins left by precursors that are very possibly aliens, and they, like, you know, have other dimensional properties. And so there's a bit of the sci-fi supernatural going on in addition to just the straight up adventuring. It's a pretty interesting game and kind of hard to kind of encapsulate. Once you select your team, you go out to this continent on a boat, and it's like a top down 2D map. Your people are represented by little icons, and you can choose where to go. The whole continent is covered by a fog of war, and so you don't quite know where to go, although there is a compass that gives you a general direction. So like if you don't know where you're going, and let's say you're looking for the golden pyramid, you're like, I have no idea where the fuck that is, and there's all sorts of places to go, your compass will like generally point you like north. And so you're like, okay, well, if I want to go straight for the objective, I'll go north, and eventually I'll hit it, or east or west or whatever. So they give you a little bit of a hint, which I think is a good idea. You move your people around. The fog of war dissipates as you go, and you'll find various events. You'll meet villagers and natives. You will meet animals. You'll meet monsters. You'll find ruins. You'll find little challenges, all sorts of like roguelike stuff where you can go into them and decide, do I want to do this event or not? Do I want to talk to this person or not? Do I want to explore this ruin or not? You get some treasures. And the hook of it all is that there's a sanity meter, because I guess you go crazy while you're wandering around these different continents. Every step you take on the continent drains your sanity by a little bit. If you're walking on plains, no big deal. If you're in swamps, jungles, mosquitoes, mountains, icy places, lava, tar, it all takes a much heavier toll on your stamina and your mental health. And so you must bring supplies that will replenish your mental health, or you can find friendly villages to rest. You might find a waterfall to rest at, or a friendly cave or something like that. So if you get lucky, you can rest along the way. Otherwise, you need to bring enough provisions to make it to get to your destination before you go crazy. If you run out of sanity before getting to where you go, every move you make has a pretty high chance of having disaster. Maybe like one person in your party will mutiny and leave. Maybe your pack horse will kick you. Maybe you'll get sick. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that can happen if you run out of sanity. So you definitely don't want to do that. But basically, you go to these continents, you have a mission, you search around to try to find the thing, manage your resources the best you can. And if you're successful, you come back to merry old England or wherever it is that you go. They throw a party in your honor. You get some stats. You can increase some available resources back at home, and then you keep going. And every so often, you'll get one of the main story missions where somebody will come with you, like a scientist or researcher, and they're like, oh, I'm looking for the ruins of the precursors, and I want you to take me here. And then you go to this thing. It advances the story. You get a little bit more story. I like this game a lot. I think the art is fantastic. I love the art style quite a bit. I love the roguelike formula. It's very different. This kind of like roguelike exploring is not something that comes up very often, and so I really enjoy that they're taking a different approach to the material. It's not like every other roguelike out there where you have the same kind of like pips on a map and card-based and deck-based and stuff. This feels very, very different. A lot of interesting interactions with your team. You can talk to them and promote them. There's a lot of like rivalry and loyalty elements that come into it. There's a lot of negotiating with the native tribes that you meet, or like the locals of wherever you go. You can try to honor their traditions. You can not honor their traditions. You can respectfully visit their temples. You can rob their temples. You can do all sorts of stuff. Lots of wild animal encounters. And then when you do get into a fight, it goes into a 2D dice-based system, which is actually quite clever. You can equip different weapons to like modify your chances, but basically you roll dice and you try to match dice to certain objectives. And just, it's deeper than that. I'm not going to get into it here, but basically you roll the dice, match them up to the objective that you want to do, and then you attack. It works really well. I think it's a fun system, entertaining system. So I think the combat is good. It moves pretty quickly. You can also try to avoid combat as much as possible if you don't want to fight. Lots of options. I think this is just a really, really well done game. Visually attractive. It is gameplay attractive. It's smart. It makes sense. And to be frank, when I played this in 2021, I really liked it a lot. Again, as per usual, I fell off of it for whatever reason. I didn't come back, but I liked it quite a bit. And so I've been thinking about this game off and on since 2021. Like, it is never far from my mind. Like, I'll be thinking about, oh, what do I want to play? Oh, what about Curious Expedition 2? I didn't finish it. I should go back to it. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. I don't know. But like, it's been living rent free in my head for like at least 4 years. And I figured that now is the time to come back to it. I really need to just finish it. I need to get it out of my system. I want to just like roll credits and see what this game has to offer. So I really appreciate it a lot. I think it's quite good. And I will say, I want to give props to the developers, because when the first Curious Expedition came out, it was good because a lot of the systems were there. But I got to be frank, I was pretty hard on them because there were a lot of like colonialist vibes, let's say. You were kind of like, you know, the rich aristocratic hunter / explorer. You were plundering the local tribes, stealing their artifacts and bringing them back. And it was basically like colonialism, the game. Pretty tone deaf for what was going on politically then, and how people were becoming more aware of like what a negative influence colonialism is, and how we should really think about other people and respect other cultures. And so the systems were good, the gameplay was good, but like the content was like, oh man, it was rough. It was hard to play that without criticizing it in terms of social issues. And I criticized it pretty heavily. And the developers really seem to have taken note of that, because in Curious Expedition 2, you are searching in a different, like the mechanics are the same, but you're searching for like alien precursor artifacts. You're not just robbing people, you're like meeting people, you're doing different objectives, you're exploring. You have way more choices to like not plunder the indigenous cultures. You can like hang out with them and respect them and talk to them. You can bring an anthropologist with you. I think that's a great idea. Like, it all works out really well in terms of gameplay. I think it's very interesting. And sometimes the locals are not just brown people. Like, I mean, I went to one place and they were like Vikings. They're all a bunch of like tall white folks. I went to one place, they were freaking salamanders. So it's not just like white people going to a place where brown people live, right? I think that was kind of a bad look, and I think the developers eventually realized that as well. So kudos to them for changing it up and making it more, you know, politically, socially acceptable. I think it's way more palatable to play this way. It's way more enjoyable to play this way. It's way less like socially concerning. So that stuff matters to me. I bet if you're listening to the show, it probably matters to you as well. And I really appreciate that they did those changes. It works. So Curious Expedition 2 is a big win. I really like it a lot. If you like roguelikes and you've never played this one, definitely check it out. Maybe it's on sale. It's been out for a couple years by now, so it's not brand new. I think it's absolutely worth your time if you like roguelikes. It's quite unlike any other one you've probably played. It brings a lot of cool, fresh ideas to the table, and I think it's definitely something that I will do my absolute best to roll credits on this time. I don't want to wait another 4 years to give it a second attempt. I'm going to really try to finish it and find out what those sneaky precursors were up to. So big thumbs up to Curious Expedition 2. All right, folks, game portion of the show is now over, but like many people, I do spend a few minutes a week in front of screens that don't have menus or life bars. That's right. It is time for the TV and movie roundup. Oh, man. Oh, let's see. What can I talk about? Watching Murderbot. I know that Carlos brought it up when he was on the show a couple episodes ago. It's on Apple TV. It's about not a robot, not an android, maybe a cyborg. It looks like a robot at first, but it's actually got a lot of human parts underneath it. But it is not human. It does not have genitals. They spent a lot of time looking at the flat spot between his legs to make damn sure you knew the dude did not have a penis. But there's also like biomechanical aspects. I don't know exactly what it is. It's certainly a byproduct of human engineering, but he is like a robot. He goes as security, kind of like the RoboCop of this expedition that goes out to a planet to mine for resources. And while they're there, things go sideways, and so he has to like get involved. There's more to it than that, but basically it's like sci-fi and it's also comedy, and it's really interesting because they're kind of exploring what you would do with a biomechanical person like that. Are they even a person? Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Are they a construct? Like, how do you deal with this person? So lots of interesting stuff going on in this one. I think it's pretty funny. Me and my wife are really digging it a lot. We're about 3/4 of the way through the series, and I think it's really fun. Definitely a thumbs up on Murderbot for sure. Just recently watched a movie called Dog Soldiers. I've heard about this one forever. It's like one of those ones that people talk about all the time, they reference all the time. Usually I hear it referenced as a good werewolf movie and also a really good double A movie that punches above its weight. That they do a lot with a little in terms of budget. And I think that's true. I think there's a couple actors in this movie that broke big, and I believe the director of this film went on to do a lot of big budget Hollywood stuff. So this was certainly their ticket to the big time. But it's about a group of soldiers who are doing training exercises in the woods in Scotland, and I'm not going to say much more than werewolves show up. So kind of like soldiers fighting off werewolves in the woods in Scotland. Super low budget, super low budget. They spent like zero money on lighting. Everything is really dark in this film. Maybe it's just the cut that I watched, but really dark. But it's funny. Like you can see that even though there's not much budget, the werewolves look good. I think the writing is pretty good in general. There's a couple places that could be patched up and shored up, but I think, the characters are likable enough. Like you can see what they're going for, and it works. Like I think it's a good film. It's enjoyable enough. I thought it was fine. Probably won't ever watch it again. Probably won't be like a classic for me, but it's an interesting artifact of like, okay, this kind of kicked off the careers of these people. And this is a good example of like how you can step up your game going from something small budget into something that is much bigger budget and just leveraging what you got. I think for such a small project that had, so few dollars and had a limited amount of sets and a limited amount of special effects, I think they did a good job. So entertaining. It's not something that I think is like a big budget blockbuster that I would recommend to everybody. But if you want to see this kind of like weirdly experimental werewolf movie made in Scotland that gets referenced all the time, I think it's worth looking from that perspective. We'll also say I saw, what else did I see? Cube from 2021. This is a remake of a movie from I think 10 or 20 years ago from Canada. Basically, these people wake up inside a square room and they don't know who they are. They don't know who the other people are. And there is a door on every one of the walls. So imagine like being inside of a cube, right? So there's north, south, east, west. Each one of those walls has a door in the middle of it. And then also the floor and also the ceiling. And there's kind of like little monkey bar handles all over the place. So you can climb up and climb down if you wish. And so sometimes when you go in the next room, there's a trap that will kill you. Sometimes not. And so these people have to kind of figure out what is going on. Why are they there? How does this whole place work? What the fuck? WTF? And see what's going on. Like I said, this is a remake of a cult film. I've heard of the original many, many times. And in fact, we got it mixed up. I thought we were watching the original, but actually we were watching the remake. So we'll go back and watch the original at some point. This remake was made in Japan from 2021, like I said, and it was okay. I don't think the story came together at all, but I think the premise is really interesting. They did a lot with a little in terms of like, I bet they really only made like 2 rooms and they just filmed the characters kind of walking back and forth between the rooms as if they were going through multiple cubes over and over. They did a lot with the lighting. They changed the lighting types. But I think once it was revealed what was going on, it didn't really make a lot of sense. And I feel like the events that happened in the movie didn't really logically hold together. And there were a couple problems I had, pretty big script-wise. And so I feel like the idea of strangers being trapped in a series of cubes is pretty compelling from a sci-fi perspective, but the puzzles didn't work and the resolution didn't work. And ultimately it was pretty disappointing. Did not care for that. The only other thing I'll talk about right now is a movie called Get Away, coming from Nick Frost. This is a pretty new one. It's about a family of 4 who are English tourists, and they're going on a holiday. And they go to this like really fucking remote island because there's supposed to be some kind of like special play, like a theatrical play that they only do every so often on this island. And so they want to go see it. And they rent a B&B on the island and they go there. And then, of course, everybody on the island is like fucking sketch and weird. And things go sideways. I'm not going to say too much about it because I feel like experiencing this movie as you go through is really the joy of this. But I will say it's funny. It's certainly on the lighter side. Lots of jokes. There's definitely blood and killing and stuff like that. But it's all like, it's not heavy. I wouldn't really say it's like a slasher film or even super bloody. I think it's just really more funny than anything. I think Nick Frost, he's one of the guys from Shaun of the Dead. He's done a lot of comedy films. And so that influence certainly comes through. And there is a very interesting progression of events. I will say, full disclosure, both my wife and I were completely surprised by what happened in this film. We did not see that coming. And it's almost even too much of a spoiler to say that there's a twist. Although that's kind of par for the course for horror movies like this. But boy, both of us were like, oh shit. Neither one of us saw it. And it's a pretty rare day when neither one of us sees it coming. So I will say hats off to Get Away. They definitely got us. They pulled it off and pulled the wool over our eyes. It was fun. It was good. I definitely recommend that one if you want a fun horror movie to watch, especially with some friends or a partner or something. It was good times. Definitely thumbs up on Get Away. That was a good one. All right, folks, that is a show. Before the closing music, would love for you to leave reviews, share the show on social media, but most important of all, please recommend the show to your friends because nothing beats good old word of mouth. As always, I want your questions and comments like you heard me address today. You can email me directly at sovideogamespodcast@gmail.com. You can reach me on social media. You can find me on specifically Instagram and Blue Sky. It's my name, BradGallaway, all A's, no O's. You can also hit me up in the Soviet Games Discord, which is totally free of charge. Drop me a line somehow, somewhere, and I'll get you on board to continue the conversation. And finally, if you would like to support the show, if you've listened this far, if you're this far in the show, and if you always get this far in the show, maybe you're a regular listener. Maybe you're a super fan. I don't know, man. Reach out. Let me know. If you made it this far and you like what you heard, please do me a favor and just kick $1 into the Patreon. It would help me so much because, as I said, we've got a lot of maintenance that needs to be done. And anybody helping out would be super appreciated. It also costs money to run the podcast. Also costs money to run GameCritics.com. If you want to kick in, that would be great. You can do that over at patreon.com/the Soviet Games Podcast. Every single dollar helps, and €1 helps that much more. All right, folks, that's going to do it for episode 446. Thank you again for joining me here in the Soviet Games Podcast, and I'll see you next week.